Because Lucas wanted to break off our engagement for the sake of his white moonlight, I agreed without hesitation. Everyone thought I was crazy for giving up the rising crown prince of the capital's business world. I just sneered. His company was already on the verge of collapse thanks to me. What was there to be reluctant about? I was reviewing the company's financial report when my phone rang. It was Lucas. His voice came through, cold and detached. "Kiara Adams, I want to cancel our engagement." I didn't say anything. He continued, "I told you before I only see Anna Taylor as a sister. Why did you have to pick a fight with her? You." Before he could finish, I lazily cut him off. "Fine, cancel it then." There was silence. After a long pause, his voice carried a trace of hesitation. "Are you sure?" I said, "I want to call off our engagement." "I know, I agree. Go ahead and post the announcement later. My company's legal department will coordinate with you." Without waiting for his response, I hung up. Honestly, Lucas's call came later than I expected. I had already thrown a glass of wine on his so-called white moonlight, yet it took him several days to finally come and end things. With work efficiency like that, no wonder the Lucas Group was heading toward ruin. While I was still thinking, my secretary came in carrying a folder. "President Adams, this is the information for young star Darren Young's upcoming concert." Darren Young, I remembered him. A handsome boy with a sweet mouth, someone who knew how to charm others. He was talented too, though he didn't have anyone powerful backing him. Because of that, he once came to me with red eyes, asking to be a VIP guest in my private lounge. At the time, I still had an engagement, so I wasn't interested. But now, things were different. I waved my hand and said, "Have the assistant take care of sponsoring his concert. And tell Darren Young to come to my suite tonight." Just as I finished giving instructions, my phone rang again. It was Lucas. Half a month without even a text, and now he could manage to call twice in one day. How strange. "What is it now? Are you about to post the announcement?" "Just get in touch with my legal department. They'll handle everything." There was silence on the other end for a moment. Then he said coldly, "I want to cancel our engagement because of what you've done. You've gone too far." "Which part?" I asked indifferently. "The part where I poured wine over your precious Anna? Or the part where I told you to get lost?" A few days ago, there had been a charity gala. As my fiancé, Lucas not only refused to attend with me, but actually brought his so-called white moonlight, Anna Taylor, as his date. Everyone was waiting to see how I'd react. Lucas was famous among high society for being a flirt. He'd been caught multiple times entering hotels with different actresses. I never cared, it was just an arranged engagement anyway. But this time, he had the nerve to bring another woman right in front of me. That I couldn't tolerate. Especially when Anna deliberately walked up to me with that smug smile and threw a few sarcastic remarks my way. I immediately slapped her across the face. Even the designer dress Lucas had custom-made for her ended up drenched in red wine. "How could you treat me like this? Lucas will be furious," she cried. How ridiculous. As if I cared. I didn't want to waste another word on someone like her. I just said coldly, "Get out." Lucas rushed over, and the moment he saw the scene, he immediately scolded me. "You need to apologize to Anna, otherwise I won't forgive you." I turned my head toward him, mocking. "Then you get out too. Don't bother me." "I just hope you can keep your composure," he said stiffly. "After all, once you marry into our family, you'll be Mrs. Lucas. You should care about our family's reputation." "Are you done lecturing me?" I interrupted impatiently. "Even my father doesn't care if I embarrass the Adams family. Why are you so worried? As for being Mrs. Lucas, whoever wants that title can have it. It has nothing to do with me." Maybe my tone was too dismissive, but soon after, the Lucas Corporation officially released a statement announcing the termination of our engagement. The official announcement declaring the cancellation of my engagement with Lucas immediately stirred the entire social circle. The Lucas and Adams families were two of the most powerful names in the city, and our engagement had been arranged since childhood. Now that it was suddenly called off, everyone began buzzing about it. Countless media accounts started analyzing the emotional rift between us. But the narratives they pushed were all the same. Lucas, the charming playboy who loved to flirt and have fun, while I, poor Kiara Adams, was hopelessly obsessed with him and refused to let go. Some even claimed I was the ultimate simp, determined to marry him at any cost. Because of this, people began flooding my social media accounts with comments. "Hey rich queen, you've got money and looks, why bother with a man like that? Sis, you could have any guy you want. Don't limit yourself by gender, babe, I'm available too. Stop letting love make you stupid. Maybe go touch some grass and wake up already." My private messages were filled with teasing remarks from netizens, all half joking, half concerned, as if they feared I'd hang myself from some crooked tree named Lucas out of heartbreak. But the truth was, I couldn't care less about the broken engagement. In fact, everything was unfolding exactly as I had planned. The engagement between Lucas and me had always been a business arrangement. If he had been willing to keep up appearances and play the role of a husband in name only, I wouldn't have minded. In our world, open marriages were nothing new. But instead, he insisted on flaunting Anna Taylor right in front of me, as if to make a point, even acting as though I was the lucky one to be engaged to him. That was something I would never tolerate. Lucas had been spoiled his entire life, thinking that everyone should treat him with respect simply because he was the heir of the Lucas family. But over the years, the family had run into endless problems. The internal management of their corporation was in chaos, and the business empire his grandfather had built was now teetering on the edge of collapse. Among the younger generation, no one had the capability to take charge. The Lucas family had become an empty shell. So, as far as I was concerned, ending the engagement was no loss at all. The only thing I couldn't let slide was the years of arrogance and irritation he had caused me. That afternoon, Darren Young's management company officially announced the details of his upcoming concert. It would be held at the city's largest stadium, with the most advanced stage screens and high-end promotional equipment. Fans went wild with excitement, cheering as if it were a national holiday. Then someone sharp-eyed pointed out the obvious. "Wait, isn't this event sponsored by the Adams Group?" The comments section exploded. "Of course it is. That's a top-tier investor right there. So you're telling me our boy Darren has a golden backer now? The Adams heiress, heard she's gorgeous and loaded." As the news spread, people quickly connected the dots, linking my name to the freshly announced breakup. Even my best friend, Rachel Miller, called me directly. "So, you've got your eye on Darren Young now? You're really done with Lucas?" she asked with a teasing tone. "Being done with Lucas is true," I said calmly. "As for Darren, that depends on how well he performs." Rachel laughed. "Then let's go celebrate your freedom tonight. Drinks on me." Later that evening, we went out for drinks to toast my newfound liberation. But as luck would have it, we ran into Lucas's crowd. There were only a few high-end bars in the city, so it wasn't that surprising to bump into them. But what I didn't expect was to encounter them near the restroom. While I was washing my hands, I looked up into the mirror and saw a group of men standing behind me. They were gathered outside the men's restroom, chatting casually while waiting for Lucas to finish throwing up. Apparently, he was having the time of his life, drinking himself into oblivion, surrounded by sycophants. The longtime friends of Lucas were flattering him endlessly. "So what if she's the Adams heiress?" one of them said with a laugh. "You've had tons of scandals before, and she never dared to say a word." "Exactly," another chimed in. "In the end, it's because young Master Lucas has that irresistible charm. Kiara Adams would never let him go." "Yeah, agreeing to break up this time is probably just her playing hard to get," someone else added. "Think about it. Right after the announcement, she went and invested in some no-name celebrity. Isn't that just to get your attention?" Lucas was clearly drunk on their praise, swaying slightly as he laughed. "You're right. She's just a woman. Let's bet, within a week, Kiara Adams will come crying and begging me not to leave her." "I say 3 days," another man grinned, pulling cash from his pocket. The rest followed suit, handing their money over to Lucas with exaggerated gestures, as if worshipping him. Watching the scene through the mirror, I couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. I opened my purse, pulled out $2,000 in cash, and walked toward them. The moment they saw me, the group froze. The one who had been bragging the loudest a second ago suddenly found the floor very interesting. Lucas stood there, momentarily stunned. Just as he opened his mouth to speak, I raised my hand and threw the money straight at his face. bills scattered across the floor like confetti. I looked around at the group of men, smiling faintly. "I bet," I said calmly, "that within 2 weeks, Lucas will be the one kneeling in front of me, begging not for me to take him back, but for me to forgive him." The next morning, the Lucas family came straight to my house. This time, it wasn't just some messenger. It was Mr. Lucas, Lucas's father himself, bringing gifts worth a fortune. I took a sip of my coffee and said flatly, "I'm not seeing them." The butler hesitated. "But Mr. Lucas brought many gifts. It's clear he's sincere." I said, "I'm not seeing them." My younger brother, Ethan Adams, immediately shot up from the couch, his sleeves rolling up as if ready for a fight. "That bastard still has the nerve to come here? He acts like some spoiled rich boy running wild all day, and now he wants to crawl back after calling off the engagement? Not a chance." I gave him a single glance, and he instantly sat back down, grumbling under his breath. From what I knew about Lucas, there was no way he came here voluntarily. He must have been forced by his father. Mr. Lucas was fully aware of the Lucas family's current situation. On the brink of collapse, internal chaos everywhere, and the company hanging by a thread. He was desperate, and his only remaining hope was the alliance with my family. Right now, I held control over a massive real estate and oil project in Harbor City. If the Lucas family could get even a small share of that deal, they might have a chance at revival. Unfortunately for them, Lucas was too much of a fool to see it. "Send them away," I told the butler. "I don't want to see them." He nodded and went to the door to deliver the message. Ethan looked smug. "Good, let that jerk taste rejection for once. What's he so proud of anyway?" When the butler returned, he reported, Mr. Lucas left in a rage. He cursed loudly before leaving." I wasn't surprised. Being forced to come here early in the morning, only to be turned away by me, must have bruised his ego badly. I could imagine his anger boiling over. But the things that would truly upset him were still ahead. The Lucas Group had made its fortune in real estate, but after I snatched 2 major land projects right out from under them, Lucas finally couldn't sit still. Furious, he came storming to my company to confront me. Unfortunately for him, my company's security team wasn't the type to be intimidated. They refused to let him step even 1 foot inside the building. Eventually, he lost his temper and called me directly. "Tell your guards to move. I need to talk to you," he barked. "Come down and meet me yourself." Without saying a word, I handed the phone to my assistant. "Hello, Mr. Lucas," my assistant said in an even tone. "President Adams is currently in a meeting. Without a prior appointment, she won't be able to see you." "Get out of my way. Do you know who I am?" "I'm Lucas," he shouted furiously. At my instruction, my assistant kept her voice calm and professional. My assistant paused for a moment before replying calmly, "Of course I know who you are, Mr. Lucas, the former fiancé of President Adams. But since the engagement has already been cancelled without an appointment, you no longer have the qualifications to meet with her." On the other end of the line, Lucas erupted into furious shouting, hurling insults until my assistant hung up. Then she turned and handed the phone back to me. "All done. What are your next instructions, President Adams?" "Keep pressing forward with every single one of the Lucas Group's projects," I said, my tone cool. "Don't miss a thing." That night, Darren Young called. His voice on the other end of the line was careful and polite. "I hope I'm not disturbing you, Miss Adams." He was a handsome, well-mannered young man, so naturally I was more patient than usual. "Not at all. What's the matter?" "I just wanted to thank you for sponsoring my concert," he said shyly. "Would you let me treat you to dinner?" I agreed right away. What I didn't expect was that he would reserve a table at the most prestigious 5-star restaurant in the city. "Miss Adams," Darren said with a bright smile once we sat down, "thanks to your support, my company is finally paying attention to me. I even landed a few endorsement deals. I made some money, so I wanted to thank you properly." Polite and grateful, he really did know how to make a good impression. I found myself liking him even more. In the entertainment industry, Darren's looks weren't the most striking, but they were certainly memorable. He stood about 6 feet tall, with sharp, symmetrical features and a clean, refined presence. Having just graduated from college, he still carried a trace of youthful innocence that made him even more appealing. "You've been so kind to me," he said with a soft smile. "Can I call you Big Sis?" I nodded slightly. His grin widened, revealing two faintly visible dimples. Having dinner with such an attractive young man lifted my mood considerably. After we finished eating, I reached for my wallet, but before I could say anything, Darren stopped me. Apparently, he had paid while pretending to go to the restroom. "I said I was the one inviting you," he said earnestly. "How could I let you pay?" His thoughtfulness pleased me even more. I was just about to offer him a few endorsement connections when a familiar voice echoed from behind me. Well, didn't expect to see you here, Kiara." It was Lucas, standing only a few feet away, with Anna Taylor by his side. Anna wore a thin white dress that fluttered in the cold evening breeze. Lucas immediately took off his coat and draped it over her shoulders. She blushed and gave him a soft kiss on the cheek. I had to admit, she knew exactly how to make a man's heart melt. Back when Lucas and I were still engaged, she had always maintained a perfect distance, sometimes warm, sometimes cold, wrapped in her elegant image as a refined intellectual. That act made her the perfect white moonlight in Lucas's heart, the woman he could never truly have. Now that the engagement was off, she could finally relax and take her place openly as his official girlfriend. When our eyes met, both of us froze for a moment. Anna immediately ducked behind Lucas, her face full of delicate fragility and innocence. Lucas's expression shifted the instant he noticed Darren standing behind me. The teasing look in his eyes turned to anger. "What are you doing here? And who's that guy?" I had no intention of responding. I simply turned toward Darren, preparing to leave, when Lucas stepped in front of me, blocking my way. "I'm talking to you," he snapped. "Why are you out having dinner with another man?" Looking at his outstretched arm, I couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. "Do you own the ocean or something that you have to control everything within your sight?" His face darkened. "What did you just say?" I said, I repeated evenly, "who I eat with or go out with is none of your business. We don't have any relationship anymore. Maybe worry about yourself before you try managing me." Lucas's face went pale with fury, but then his expression shifted into something like sudden realization. "I get it now. You planned this, didn't you? You found out I'd be dining here tonight, so you brought some random guy along to provoke me. Isn't this little play hard to get act a bit outdated?" In that moment, I finally understood what people meant when they said talking to some men was like playing the violin for a cow. Today, I finally got to experience firsthand what it feels like to talk to someone completely delusional. Lucas didn't even realize what was wrong. He was like a bird drowning in his own self-confidence and arrogance. "I know I'm an exceptional man," he said with a smug smile. "It's only natural that you can't get over me. I gave you a chance before. If you had just behaved and stayed out of my business, I would have still let you enjoy the title of Mrs. Lucas, but you didn't want it." Men. Why are they always so average yet so unbelievably confident? I shot Lucas a cold, sharp look, letting him stew in silence. There was no point arguing with someone like him. The best way to deal with a man like that was to let life punch him in the face for me. The next morning, just as I was preparing for a meeting, my assistant came in to report that Mr. Lucas, his father, had arrived. As soon as he sat down, he went straight to the topic. "About the engagement," he began. Lucas was too impulsive. "We've already disciplined him. After all, our two families have been close for years. You and Lucas grew up together. You know each other's strengths and weaknesses. It's such a shame to end things like this." It must have been difficult for him, an aging patriarch forced to humble himself and plead on his son's behalf. But my patience for Lucas had long since run dry. "Mr. Lucas," I said calmly, "to be honest, I saw Lucas and Anna Taylor walking into a restaurant together just last night. He already has a lover, and the engagement cancellation has been publicly announced. There's nothing left to discuss." Seeing that I had no intention of relenting, Mr. Lucas sighed heavily, his expression weary. "I understand. Still, Kiara, I'll make sure you see that Lucas can change for the better." I gestured for my assistant to escort him out. A few minutes later, when my assistant returned, she brought new information. "President Adams, Mr. Lucas's credit cards have been frozen. He's been living extravagantly for years, and the family always looked the other way. Now, with everything locked down, I doubt he'll handle it well." "Good," I said. Notify security. If Lucas shows up here again, do not let him in. Anyone who does can consider themselves fired. I had far more important things to deal with than Lucas. The Harbor City project could potentially save the Lucas family's financial losses, but I had no intention of letting them anywhere near it. I needed a new business partner instead. Word about the project's availability spread fast. Before long, someone reached out. On the way to the restaurant, I reviewed the file and frowned slightly. Ethan Lynn, the second son of the influential Lynn family. The Lynns had been in government service for generations and had deep political ties. Ethan was the second child, born despite the family planning restrictions. No wonder he'd been spoiled since birth. If he chose to enter politics, his path would already be laid out for him. So why was he stepping into the business world instead? I had heard of him before, but this would be our first meeting, and when I finally saw him, I had to admit I was a little surprised. He was strikingly handsome. Red lips, white teeth, sword-like eyebrows, and bright, focused eyes. With a face like that, he could have easily dethroned half the entertainment industry. His bearing was just as impressive, poised, elegant, and calm. The kind of natural nobility that came from a life of privilege. Every gesture carried the composed refinement of a gentleman raised in power. President Adams, he greeted me warmly, his voice smooth and measured. I've heard a lot about you. Meeting you in person is even more rewarding than I imagined. Ethan Lynn smiled gracefully and stepped forward, pulling out a chair for me before taking his own seat. I happen to learn a little about your preferences from some small sources, he said politely. I hope you won't mind. I nodded slightly, quietly studying the man in front of me. Ethan Lynn really was flawless in every way. Even the most challenging topics flowed naturally in conversation with him. The entire meal passed in an atmosphere of ease and sophistication. After dinner, Ethan took out his phone, glanced up at me with a faint, charming smile, and winked. His almond-shaped eyes carried that subtle allure and playfulness that could easily make someone's heart flutter. Over the next few days, Ethan and I met several more times, and before long, we had reached a preliminary agreement to collaborate. Meanwhile, Lucas had shown up at my company multiple times, but was always stopped by security at the front gate. One afternoon, just as I stepped out of my office building, my phone rang. It was Darren Young. Hey Darren, what's up? Shouldn't you be performing right now? Isn't tonight your closing show? His tone was dejected. The show got canceled. They replaced me with someone else. My expression hardened. Replaced? By who? There was a pause. A pianist named Anna Taylor. Of course, an old acquaintance. I immediately understood. Anna had always been proud and aloof. She would never willingly join a commercial event like this. Clearly, she was doing this to provoke me. I reassured Darren, don't worry about it. Go get your makeup done first. Then I hung up and called the event organizers directly. President Adams, the coordinator stammered nervously. But Mr. Lucas, don't forget, I interrupted coldly, who's sponsoring this entire show. Darren Young will not be replaced. After a long pause, they hurriedly agreed to make adjustments. I then instructed my assistant to send hundreds of flower arrangements to decorate the concert entrance and to buy milk tea for all the fans waiting at the venue. I wanted Darren to walk in with his head held high. When I entered the dressing room, Darren ran up to me, eyes bright with excitement. Miss Adams, thank you for doing all this for me. Just focus on performing well tonight, I told him. He had gone all out for this performance. His makeup was meticulous, his youthful features glowing under the lights. There was something undeniably charming about the way this handsome, radiant boy smiled at me. It was impossible to say no to him. To appease both sides, the organizers decided to cut the host's interview segment, giving Anna Taylor her stage time first before Darren's performance. When the decision was announced, Anna's eyes turned red, but she didn't say a word. She ran out of the room, phone in hand, clearly calling someone. Moments later, commotion erupted outside. Who the hell dares to bully my woman? A loud, angry voice boomed. I said my baby's performance stays on the program. Let's see who's bold enough to defy me. It was Lucas. The moment his gaze landed on me, his expression froze. What are you doing here? Then he noticed Darren standing behind me, and his face darkened instantly. So this is what you're up to? Causing trouble just to help that pretty-faced boy? Is that it? Tonight's Anna's first performance since returning to the country, and you're deliberately trying to sabotage her? I turned to Darren. Go backstage and get ready. Then, I calmly unscrewed a bottle of water and took a sip. I'm talking to you. Lucas snapped, stepping forward. I ignored him. Furious, he lunged forward, reaching out to grab my arm, but before he could touch me, I flung the water straight into his face. Feel better now? I asked coolly, handing him a tissue from the makeup table. If you want to support Anna Taylor, go ahead. Throw her 100 concerts, a national tour for all I care. But Darren's obedient and respectful. I like that. I have money, so I'll invest in him. If you have a problem with it, go invest in the organizers yourself. What are you doing yelling at me here? Lucas stood frozen, water dripping down his face, completely stunned. I couldn't help but smirk coldly. If you don't have the ability to compete, maybe stop running around acting like you do. Seeing you only ruins my mood. Thinking back on it now, I had to admit, it was almost satisfying. Agreeing to that engagement back then had truly been a mistake. Lucas stood frozen in shock, and when he finally realized what was happening, all he could do was stomp his foot in frustration. With his credit cards frozen, even though he still carried the title of the Lucas family's young master, he was no better than a helpless shrimp thrashing around in shallow water. That night, the fan support event I had organized for Darren Young received overwhelming praise online. Several marketing accounts even used Lucas as clickbait for gossip again, but this time, public opinion had shifted. Queen Tiara is rich, gorgeous, and perfectly capable. Can't she shine on her own? One comment read. Exactly. If she were some lovesick fool, she wouldn't be running one of the most powerful business empires in the country. These gossip accounts should mind their own business. Right? She probably doesn't even look twice at that spoiled rich boy Lucas. Raising an obedient, polite young man like Darren sounds way better. As I was scrolling through the comments, my phone rang. It was Ethan Lynn. I just discovered a new restaurant that's absolutely amazing, he said smoothly. President Adams, would you be interested in trying it out with me? I glanced at the nearly finalized partnership contract on my desk. Everything had been negotiated already. All that was left was to find time for the official signing. Why did he need to invite me to dinner separately? Or perhaps, was he implying something else? Or maybe, Ethan's voice carried a subtle hint of disappointment. President Adams just doesn't want to see me. I frowned slightly, mentally scolding myself for overthinking. After a moment's hesitation, I agreed. But when I arrived at the restaurant, I froze in surprise. The entire place was empty, no other guests, no noise. Only a long dining table stood in the center, beautifully decorated with candles and roses. A live band was already in place, softly tuning their instruments for a romantic melody. In Ethan's hand was a bouquet of bright red roses. A sinking feeling formed in my chest. These are fresh flowers I picked out myself, Ethan said, handing me the bouquet with an elegant smile before pulling out a chair for me. I was planning to wait until our project was finalized before confessing my feelings, he continued, his tone calm but deliberate. But it seems I can't wait that long. I nearly jumped out of my seat. Mr. Lin, I'm 3 years older than you, I said quickly. Don't tell me I have some sort of curse that only attracts younger men? He raised an eyebrow. So what? Isn't Darren Young younger than you too? You like his type but not mine? The way Ethan stared at me, serious, intent, and unblinking, made a chill run down my spine. Of course it's different, I replied sharply. If I ever got tired of Darren, I could easily let him go. But if I actually got involved with you, I'd have to find a proper reason to end things. Otherwise, I'd just be asking for trouble. We're not suitable for each other, I said firmly. You know I just canceled an engagement. Your family would never approve. Ethan smiled faintly. That's not your concern. When I decide on something, no one can stop me. He took my hand, his grip warm and steady. Or maybe, you just prefer someone like Darren, huh, big sis? His voice dropped lower, soft and teasing, and for a moment my heart skipped a beat. So that's it, he murmured. You like men who act cute with you, don't you? Before I could react, Ethan moved closer and sat beside me. His almond-shaped eyes fixed on me with unwavering focus, and the tiny mole at the corner of his eye only made him look more dangerously charming. I know Lucas hurt you, he said gently. But don't worry. I'll make sure he pays for that. I'll be better than him, smarter, more considerate. And most importantly, I'm younger and stronger." As he said that, his fingers lightly brushed against the back of my hand, sending a tingling jolt through my skin. "Anyone who makes you angry," he added softly, "I won't let them go." I thought he was just trying to flirt, so I didn't take his words seriously. But 2 days later, Lucas's uncle was arrested for a hit-and-run case. The moment it happened, the Lucas family scrambled to contain the situation, hushing up the news, settling with the victim's family, doing everything to keep it quiet. By the time I heard about it, the Lin family had already stepped in, one step ahead of them. The Lin family had approached the victim's family first. Because of that, the victim's relatives refused to accept any kind of settlement from the Lucas family. They demanded that Lucas's uncle be punished strictly according to the law. In the previous generation of the Lucas family, that uncle had been the most capable one, brilliant in business though dangerously arrogant. Lucas, unfortunately, had inherited about 60% of his uncle's personality and none of his competence. Desperate, the Lucas family tried every possible connection to pull the uncle out of trouble. They finally managed to contact someone with authority, but that someone happened to be Ethan Lin's older brother. The Lucas and Lin families had never had any relationship before. They had never even met. Predictably, the Lucases were thrown out without mercy. Not long after, Lucas himself showed up at my house. "The young master of the Lucas family is waiting outside," the butler said hesitantly. "He's brought quite a lot of gifts." My younger brother and I exchanged a glance. "No, I'm not seeing him," I said flatly. "He only remembers this house now? Tell him to get lost." Ethan chuckled coldly. "Make him wait outside in the wind for a while. Our home isn't some public square where any random cat or dog can walk in." I smiled faintly. "Actually, let him in. I want to see what he looks like now, with his pride shattered." The butler nodded and left to bring him in. Flipping through a magazine, I couldn't help but remark, "It seems the Lin family moves fast. Having a competent older brother really makes a difference." No, my brother said quickly, grinning as he tried to flatter me. "Having a great sister is even more important. Hey sis, if you had $10 million and I got really sick, needing $9 million for treatment, would you help me?" He looked at me with bright, hopeful eyes. I gave a cold laugh and closed my magazine. "Of course I would," I said sweetly. "I'd make sure your funeral was grand. We can afford it." The light in his eyes died instantly. "How could you say that? I'm your own flesh and blood, and besides, you just made $10 million recently." "Exactly," I replied calmly. "And if the moment I make money, you suddenly get sick, that means you're a curse to me. I don't need that kind of brother." Watching his flustered expression, I was just about to tease him further when I noticed movement at the doorway. Lucas walked in, his usual arrogance gone, replaced by a forced, pleasant smile. "Kiara," he said softly, "I brought you lots of gifts." He set several boxes on the table. Among them, a ruby necklace gleamed under the light. Well, I said dryly, "what brings the great Mr. Lucas here? You wouldn't have come if there wasn't something you wanted." Even my brother couldn't resist a jab. But surprisingly, Lucas didn't lose his temper or snap back. He kept smiling, trying hard to sound gentle. "I was wrong before," he said. "After I went home, I thought about everything carefully. Our two families have always had a good relationship. There's no reason for things to be so strained. These gifts are my apology. I'll change, I swear. No more fooling around. Let's just continue our engagement, all right?" "And what about Anna Taylor?" I asked coolly. Lucas hesitated, his brow furrowing slightly. "I already told you, there's nothing between us. Anna and I are just friends. You're overthinking it." Before I could respond, my brother shot to his feet, rolling up his sleeves with a cold laugh. "No one here needs your moral lectures, Lucas. What do you take us for, idiots? First she's a friend, then she's a little sister, and next she'll be your sweetheart, right? What's next? Only admitting it when you're caught red-handed in bed with her." Lucas's face turned stiff, his lips pressed tightly together as he failed to come up with a single word. "Enough," I said calmly, leaning back in my chair, watching him squirm. "It seems we can't talk like civilized people anymore," I said coldly. "From now on, don't contact me again. Take your things and get out. My house doesn't keep trash." Lucas's face twisted instantly, his hands clenched tight. Kiara Adams, I came here to fix things, he said, his tone rising. I know you still want to marry me. Fine, I'll agree. After we get married, I'll keep my distance from Anna. Is that good enough for you? Will that make you happy? Even my brother couldn't take it anymore. He grabbed the glass of water in his hand and hurled it at the floor in front of Lucas. Are you out of your damn mind? Do you even hear yourself talk? Go look in a mirror. What do you think you are, saying something like that? Do you have any idea how many people are lining up to pursue my sister? Who the hell do you think you are? Get lost now. Lucas said nothing. He just stood there staring at me with that same stubborn defiance. This is your last chance, he said finally, voice low and cold. If you don't take it, then the title of Mrs. Lucas will never belong to you again. Oh no, I said mockingly, pressing a hand to my chest. I'm terrified. It was the first time in my life anyone had threatened me like that, and it took every bit of self-control not to laugh. Lucas, I said smoothly, it's been exactly 2 weeks since the last time we met at that bar. He blinked in confusion, his expression dull and slow, like he couldn't follow what I was saying. I decided it was time for him to see exactly what he was dealing with. With a slight nod, I signaled to my brother, who went upstairs and returned with several thick folders in his arms. I pulled one out and placed it on the table in front of Lucas. The moment his eyes landed on the contents, his expression changed completely. Kiara Adams, he roared, slamming his hand on the table. What the hell did you do to my family? Those documents contained every major business project that the Lucas Group had lost to me over the past few months. Each one another nail in their crumbling empire. Your uncle, I said calmly, was drunk when he killed a middle-aged man in his 40s with his car. Afterward, your family tried to cover it up quietly, but Ethan Lynn got to the victim's family first, and I helped them hire the best attorney in the city. Lucas's eyes widened in horror. I continued, my voice steady. We obtained the surveillance footage, the restaurant receipts from that night, and several other key pieces of evidence. Everything's been documented properly. So you're the one behind all this? He stammered, stepping back as if struck. You manipulated everything? I tilted my head slightly. The law punishes those who break it. Your uncle killed someone. He deserves the consequences. As for my benefit, I smiled faintly, pulling another folder from the pile and sliding it across the table. His hands trembled as he opened it. After flipping through a few pages, he collapsed back into the chair, pale and shaking. See it clearly now? I asked softly. Before I could finish, he snatched the folder and tore it to shreds, paper scattering across the floor like snow. Tearing it up won't help, I said evenly. That's only a copy. Even if you destroy it, it won't erase what your family has done. Lucas's face had gone completely white, his lips colorless. After a long, trembling pause, he finally managed to speak, shaking his head in disbelief. How could you be this cruel? You really want to destroy me? That file, I said, leaning forward slightly, contains every dirty secret the Lucas Group has tried to hide over the years. Tax evasion, employee coercion leading to suicides, falsified reports, deliberate cover-ups. I told you, Lucas, my patience with you is gone. We could have stayed out of each other's way. I don't care about you enough to bother. But you decided to step on me to boost your own ego. That's something I'll never tolerate. So this, I finished, is where it ends. Lucas still stood frozen in shock, unable to process what had happened. I waved to the butler. Show him out. The butler moved forward immediately, and as he was dragged toward the door, Lucas finally snapped out of his daze. You shameless woman, he shouted, voice echoing through the hall. Don't think this is over. You can't bring me down that easily. Just wait and see. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my legs calmly. Sure, I murmured. We'll see. I took a slow sip of tea, quietly waiting for what would happen next. Not long after, Lucas's uncle's case officially went to trial. Because he hadn't stopped to check on the victim after the collision, and instead dragged the man's body for several dozen meters, the circumstances were classified as severe, enough to convict him of manslaughter. The incident pushed the Lucas family right to the center of public outrage. I immediately contacted several media outlets and leaked an old scandal. Years ago, the Lucas Corporation had driven one of its employees to suicide. At the time, the company was drowning in debt and accused of tax evasion, drawing multiple government audits. In the end, they pinned all the blame on their CFO, and even threatened his family to keep quiet, which ultimately led to his death. One after another, scandals surfaced. Executives from the Lucas family were successively arrested, their empire collapsing like sand slipping through fingers. Those who once flattered and clung to Lucas now avoided him as though he carried a plague, afraid of being dragged down with him. Eventually, Mr. Lucas himself was forced to hold a press conference, spending a fortune to buy trending topics in an attempt to suppress the negative coverage. Meanwhile, the Harbor City project was signed without a hitch. I rewarded myself with a short trip to the coast, lounging beneath the sun with Darren Young beside me, dutifully pouring me a drink. Golden sunlight, blue ocean, and a perfectly sculpted set of abs, he really was a sight to behold. I was still admiring his physique when my phone rang. It was Ethan Lynn. "Kiara," he said, his voice dripping with mock indignation. "How heartless can you be? It's been ages, and you haven't even called me once." The familiar tone of complaint made my chest tighten slightly. "But we had just spoken a few days ago." "A day without seeing you feels like 3 years," he continued playfully. "I miss you so much. To make you happy, I helped deal with those awful people from the Lucas family. And now you're off sunbathing at the beach without even inviting me? That really hurts, you know." I pressed my fingers to my temple and sighed softly. I truly didn't know what I'd done in a past life to deserve this clingy young aristocrat. "Make sure you come back soon, okay?" Ethan's voice turned tender. "Even if I'm not beside you, you still have to think about me." He whined and teased for a good while before finally hanging up. Beside me, Darren's expression had gone pale. "Was that your boyfriend?" he asked hesitantly. "No," I replied simply. "Ethan Lynn is nothing like Lucas. He's clever, well-bred, and his family adores him. Unlike Lucas, who only knows how to waste his life partying." The reason I'd chosen Lucas as a fiancé in the first place was because he was easy to control, a man too shallow and self-absorbed to ever get in the way of my career. But someone like Ethan Lynn? He was the kind you admired from a distance, not someone you got entangled with. Still, just a few days later, he called again, sounding excited. "Kiara, I helped you take care of another problem," he announced proudly. "This time, you really owe me dinner." My heart sank. "What did you do now?" "Oh, nothing serious," he said casually. "That idiot Lucas brought some guys down to Harbor City to mess with our construction site, so I sent people to handle it. They're all locked up now." Of course, only Lucas could come up with such a stupid idea. My good mood evaporated instantly. I cut my trip short and returned to handle the aftermath. By then, the Lucas family was completely under my control. I had taken nearly all their key projects, and their Harbor City bid was dead in the water. It was only a matter of time before their empire fell apart for good. "President Adams, the flowers for today just arrived," my assistant said, entering my office. I looked up from the stack of documents and sighed. "Just put them somewhere." Ever since I returned from the coast, Ethan Lynn had sent me a bouquet of flowers every single day. Sometimes he'd call too, always managing to find something to talk about. "Kiara," he'd say in a wounded tone over the phone, "you really treat my flowers like this? You're breaking my heart." But this time, it wasn't just flowers that arrived. When I looked up, there he was, Ethan Lynn himself, standing in my office. Today, instead of his usual tailored suit, he wore casual clothes, effortlessly elegant in the simplest way. He looked several years younger that day, less sharp, more vibrant, with a hint of casual charm that almost made me forget who he was. "I picked this outfit especially for you," Ethan Lynn said cheerfully. "Do you like it?" Before I could respond, he had already stepped closer. His clear, peach blossom eyes reflected my face perfectly, the intensity of his gaze making it hard to look away. "Ethan," I said evenly, "we're not right for each other. I'm not interested in love. The only reason I deal with men is for entertainment." The words fell like stones between us. For a moment, his expression darkened with disappointment, but it vanished almost instantly, replaced by his usual soft smile. "Then why is it that others can stay around you, but I can't?" he asked quietly. "Are you really that cruel, Kiara? I just want to be near you." I sighed inwardly. Bold men like him were immune to embarrassment. It was almost impressive. I didn't want to argue, so I checked the time. It's almost lunch, he said suddenly, his energy returning. I know this amazing restaurant. Come with me, just once, okay? Before I could object, he had already taken my hand and gently pulled me toward the door. But as soon as we stepped outside, we ran into someone I hadn't expected to see again. Lucas. He looked completely different. Dark circles under his eyes, unshaven, his once proud figure reduced to a shadow of its former self. Get out of my way, Kiara, he shouted hoarsely, staggering toward me. I instinctively stepped back, and Ethan immediately moved in front of me. Whose stray dog is barking out here? Ethan sneered. Get lost. Lucas shoved him aside with surprising force, his desperation breaking through. Kiara, please, he said, his voice cracking. I'll cut things off with Anna completely. I swear I won't fool around again. Just, please, help me save my family. So he'd finally realized the depth of his family's downfall. By then, I had already secured my connections with government authorities. Inspectors were visiting the Lucas Group every few days to audit their accounts. Investors, seeing the writing on the wall, had all withdrawn, terrified of being implicated. The fair-weather friends, who once praised and flattered the Lucas family, had vanished without a trace. Their stock was in free fall. The company's financial reports were beyond saving. Kiara, Lucas said again, his voice trembling. I know I was wrong. Just this once, help me. I'll listen to you from now on. Whatever you say, I'll do it, please. No, I replied flatly, without hesitation. He looked at me as if I'd struck him. You're still angry, I know, but I promise I won't contact Anna again. From now on, I'll only love you. Only you. I almost laughed. The promises of a liar and the end of the world had one thing in common. They were both ridiculous and meaningless. Is it that you won't contact Anna? I asked coolly, or that she doesn't even want to look at you anymore? His expression twisted instantly. The once proud young master of the Lucas family now looked pitiful, broken and hollow. But that wasn't my concern anymore. Our engagement had been annulled long ago. After a long pause, he asked softly, Kiara, was there really never any feeling between us at all? I almost pitied him. Almost. Before I could answer, Ethan Lynn let out a dry laugh beside me and stepped forward. His gaze swept over Lucas from head to toe, full of disdain. Take a look at yourself, Ethan said coldly. You're disgusting. What part of you do you think is good enough for her? You're old, out of shape, and pathetic. Don't stand here and ruin her view. Then, with an air of effortless arrogance, Ethan pulled two 200-yuan notes from his wallet and tossed them at Lucas's feet. Thanks for getting out of the way, he said. Next time, keep your distance from her. As our car pulled away from the company, I caught a glimpse of Lucas in the rearview mirror, still standing there, motionless, swaying like a man about to collapse. And finally, he did. He fell to his knees right at the front gate. With no one capable left to lead them, the Lucas family could no longer bear the crushing weight of their debts. Within weeks, they officially declared bankruptcy. A once glorious commercial empire reduced to ashes, and just like that, it was over. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, watching the endless flow of people below. I wondered if the Lucas family had ever imagined that a day like this would come, and that it would come so quickly. I ran into Anna Taylor at a gala one evening. She was holding the arm of a man I didn't recognize, smiling radiantly as if her life had always been perfect. Not far away, Lucas stood with a glass of wine in hand, moving from one guest to another, forcing polite greetings. The same people he once looked down on now met him with cold indifference, brushing him off as if he didn't exist. No matter how humble he tried to be, no one cared to give him the time of day. My best friend later told me that after the Lucas family's downfall, Anna had immediately broken up with him and cut all ties completely. But for years, everyone in high society had known she'd only been toying with Lucas for her own amusement. Her reputation had sunk so low that she was eventually forced to find a man outside the social circle just to escape the gossip. Every time Anna and Lucas crossed paths after that, she'd humiliate him publicly, mocking him until his face turned white. The stories spread quickly, as rumors always do, and news about Lucas somehow kept finding its way back to me. Normally, I wouldn't have cared. But 2 weeks later, when I was resting at home, the butler came to inform me that Lucas was here to see me. He walked in, wearing an ill-fitting shirt, 2 seasons out of fashion, and all the charm and arrogance he once carried were long gone. His face looked gaunt, his eyes hollow. "Kiara," he said, voice low and trembling. He bit his lip, struggling for a long moment before finally looking up. "Please, help me one last time. Just let me keep one branch of the company. I'll give you anything you want." I looked him up and down, trying not to laugh. "Give me what exactly?" I can stay with you," he stammered. Before he could finish, a red sports car screeched to a stop outside. The window rolled down, and Ethan Lin leaned out, pulling off his sunglasses with a lazy grin. "Happy weekend, beautiful," he called out. "Come take a drive with me." Lucas's face turned green. I smiled faintly at him. "See? The men around me are all on this level. As for you..." I paused, letting my words cut deep. "Maybe when I have time, I'll toss you a little mercy, but for now, get out of my way." I brushed past him without another glance, heading straight toward Ethan. Honestly, what could be better than this? I had wealth, beauty, and freedom. Men were just a way to pass the time. After all my calculated moves and careful planning, Ethan Lin eventually became my only lover, and the only one who lasted. Even Darren Young had been signed under Ethan's entertainment company, placed under his management. Now, Darren was one of the top celebrities in the country, his schedule booked solid for the entire year. It was amusing to watch, but since Darren seemed content with it, I didn't interfere. Every year, Ethan would pick a special day to propose to me. This year was no different. The table was filled with dishes he had personally cooked, all of them my favorites. He knelt on one knee, holding a delicate handcrafted ring, looking up at me with that familiar warmth in his eyes. "Marry me," he said softly. "I swear I'll love you more every single day for the rest of my life." I smiled and thanked him, but didn't extend my hand for the ring. The air between us grew still. He sighed, a faint trace of sadness in his voice. "This is the 5th time I've proposed," he murmured, "and you still don't feel anything for me?" Before I could answer, he forced a gentle smile and added, almost to comfort himself, "It's okay. We have plenty of time. Even if I have to propose 50 more times, I'll do it gladly." Then his beautiful, fox-like eyes sparkled again as he smiled brightly. "Today's your birthday, right? Just think of this ring as a birthday present. Nothing more." Hearing that, I finally reached out my hand. Looking at Ethan Lin's handsome, youthful face, I asked softly, "Do you really think it's worth it?" For years, despite his family's opposition and the attention of countless brilliant admirers, he had stayed by my side, never wavering, never giving up. He took my hand gently, lowered his head, and pressed a tender kiss to my forehead. "Of course it's worth it," he said with quiet certainty. I slipped my arms around his slim waist, pulling him closer. "Then keep trying a little longer, Ethan Lin." He smiled, eyes glowing like sunlight breaking through clouds. "Yes, ma'am. For the rest of my life, I'll never let you go." "Did you leave because you stopped loving, or because you couldn't carry the pain any longer?" Love and Lies Story.